Okay, count down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, Bhavanga. Okay. Okay, yeah. We'll start with 3 bows to the Buddha. Okay. So this is now Monday afternoon, September 1st, 2014. And now we come to the big and important subject of karma. And so, even though the heading of this is 4 types of karma, but actually, as we'll see, what it means is that there are 4 sets of 4 under the heading of karma. So altogether there are 16 topics or 16 types of karma that will be discussed. And so these are being discussed with respect to function, that's one major heading, with respect to the order of ripening or priority of ripening, with regard to the time of ripening, and then 4th, with regard to the place of ripening. So you see the whole outline of topics is in table 5.3. But we're starting in paragraph 18 with the functions, the different functions of karma. And so the text tells us that with respect to function, there are 4 kinds of karma, namely productive karma, supportive karma, obstructive karma, and destructive karma. Okay, well, in the guide to get the explanations of these, we can jump down to the bottom of page 200, where it says, with respect to function, and then the text tells us that karma or karmas perform different functions, of which 4 are mentioned here. Now, any karma under different circumstances can perform one or several of these functions. So usually when we speak about karma, we think of karma as that which produces results, directly produces results. But actually the functioning of karma is more subtle than that, more complex and more subtle. Because the karma can actually perform 4 types of functions. And only one of these is the productive function. Only one of these, through only one of these functions, karma actually directly produces its results. And so if we continue over to the next page. Okay, so we have productive karma is wholesome or unwholesome volition which produces resultant mental states and karma-born materiality. Now here we have actually several, in this one sentence, several important points. One is that what is, in the technical abhidharmic sense, what is meant by karma is volition. That is, in any citta, any state of consciousness, there is a whole bundle of associated mental factors. One of those mental factors is, in Pali, it's called cetana. Let me write it bigger. And cetana is what we translate as volition, or some might translate intention. So the cetana is what actually expresses the mental intention. Intention, of course, it's always a factor of mind. So this is what we might call the motivation, the purpose in performing the action. So for example, if I'm walking down the street casually and just accidentally I step on ants, there's no intention of taking life. So I'm not creating the karma of killing. But if I see some ants and I don't like them and I want to get rid of them and I step on them, then what is motivating the action of stepping on the ants is the cetana, the volition of taking life. Okay, so the karma ultimately is traceable to the volition. But since the volition occurs within a citta, we could also say that it's the cittas that create the karma. So certain types of cittas are karmically creative or karmically productive. And now coming back to the sentence, the direct result of the karma is a state of consciousness, a citta, or it could be a series of cittas, which are sometimes we call them the effects or the fruits of the karma. So in conventional way of speaking, we would say, for example, if somebody gets injured in an automobile accident, casually one might say, oh, I got caught in that automobile accident, that must be my karma. Actually, that's the wrong way of speaking, because karma is what one does, not what happens to one. But it's even wrong technically to say that getting caught in the accident is the result of my karma. In the technical sense, we could say that getting into the accident is a consequence of my karma, but the actual result, the maturation of the karma, is another citta or a series of cittas. It would be those resultant cittas which come about through the maturing of the karma. So if I'm in that accident and I get pain, a lot of pain, it will be those painful bodily feelings. Those are the resultant cittas which represent the maturing of the karma. And there'll be actually the whole sense door process occurring through the body door, except for the javanas, but the preliminary chittas, the body consciousness, receiving consciousness, investigating consciousness in that body process, those are the results of the karma. And then also after the javana phase, the registration consciousness is the result of the karma. But karma also produces, apart from the mental states, the resultants, it's also responsible for certain types of matter or material phenomena. We're going to come into this in more detail, I think, starting tomorrow, or maybe it's on Wednesday morning. But for example, our sense faculties are said to be material phenomena which are produced by karma. So the reason why we have eye, ear, nose, tongue, and the physical body is as the products of past karma. So we've done certain karmas that have brought us into the human realm, and one of the features of the karma that leads to the human realm is to bring forth a bodily organism equipped with 5 physical sense faculties. If one generates the karma that leads to rebirth into the animal realm, maybe as an insect, then maybe you have different sense faculties. So the sense faculties of the insect will be produced by karma. Their sense organs will be produced by karma. So the sentence says, wholesome or unwholesome volition which produces resultant mental states and karma-born materiality both at the moment of rebirth linking and during the course of existence. Okay, so at the moment of rebirth linking, what comes into being is a physical organism, which would be maybe one cell or just a few cells, and the rebirth consciousness. The rebirth consciousness, the patisandhi, is a result of karma. The matter at the moment of rebirth is produced by karma. Technically, it's not the vipaka, not the result. It's called materiality produced by karma that has been done. Okay, thank you. Okay, so at the moment of relinking or rebirth, we have the mind, the patisandhi citta, the relinking consciousness, and then the matter, the materiality that is the base or support for the relinking consciousness. And then as they're developing in the whole course of existence, right through to the present, we're constantly undergoing experiences of chittas that arise as the result of past karma. And then this body with its sense faculties is also occurring as matter produced by past karma. So this is the resultant mental states and materiality born of karma. So it says here, at the moment of conception, productive karma generates the rebirth linking consciousness and the karma-born types of materiality constituting the physical body of the new being. And then during the course of existence, the karma produces other resultant chittas and the continuities of karma-born materiality. such as the sense faculties. As I said, the sense faculties are types of matter produced by karma. The sexual determination, that's whether we are male or female, that is a particular kind of material phenomenon, which is the result of karma. And the heart, the heart base, that physical organ, material organ, which is the support for mind and for mental consciousness. And then it says, only a karma that has attained the status of a full course of action, a full course of karma, can perform the function of producing rebirth linking. And later, as we go on, we're going to come to the courses of karma. But all wholesome and unwholesome karma, without exception, can produce results during the course of existence. You see, the production of rebirth linking, or of the relinking consciousness, that's a very important function. So it takes a full course of karma to take on that role. So that has to be a karma of a certain sufficient degree of strength. But other karmas, which might be much weaker, can still take on the role of producing their results during the course of existence. Okay, now, so this is, I would say, generally the most important function of karma is the productive function. But now karma can also exercise another function, which is called the supportive function. So looking at the text again, the supportive karma is karma which does not gain an opportunity to produce its own result, but when some other karma is exercising a productive function, this karma supports it, either by enabling it to produce its pleasant or painful results over an extended time without obstruction, or by reinforcing the continuum of aggregates, that is, the 5 aggregates produced by another karma. That sounds pretty abstract, no? So we have an example to illustrate what is meant here. So for example, through the productive function of wholesome karma, one is reborn as a human being. So in this case, supportive karma may contribute to the extension of one's lifespan and ensure that one is healthy and well provided with the necessities of life. Or on the opposite side, when an unwholesome karma has exercised its productive function by causing, for example, a painful illness, then other unwholesome karma may support it by preventing medicines from working effectively, thereby prolonging the disease. Now this karma that's exercising the supportive role is not yet producing its own result. So I don't know if I could illustrate this graphically. But let's suppose so this is karma 1, which is exercising the productive function, the generative function. And this is karma 2, which is exercising the supportive function. So karma 1, the productive karma, produces a certain result. Now, karma 2, the supportive karma, isn't producing its own result, but it's coming to the aid of the productive karma, so it could be intensifying the result. So the result comes maybe 2 times, three times more severely than would happen just through the original productive karma, or else it might enable the result to be repeated over and over, so it becomes extended. So this is due to the supportive karma. But these results are not themselves the products of the supportive karma. The supportive karma is just strengthening the productive karma. Okay, then we continue with an example. When a being has been reborn as an animal through the productive force of unwholesome karma, supportive karma may facilitate the ripening of more unwholesome karma, which produces painful results, so that a being is reborn as an animal, and then that animal maybe undergoes a lot of illness, a lot of hardship. So that is through the supportive role of the supportive karma. And the supportive karma may also lead to an extension of the lifespan, so that the unwholesome resultants have a chance to continue to occur through the maturation of the productive karma. So this gets pretty complicated. Maybe if we think of an example of illustration of a football, what do you call this, a play in a football, where, I mean, I haven't watched football for 60 years. Let me see if I can get it right. Okay, the quarterback throws the pass, is that called the pass, where he throws the ball to the halfback. The halfback catches it and starts to run. Now the halfback has his own strength, his physical strength, the power of his legs, his skill in weaving in and out. But we have a guard who comes ahead of him, blocking the tackles of the opposite team, so that the halfback is able to run even further until he gets tackled, and then the play is over. Whereas if there wasn't the guard who's blocking the tackles from the other team, then the halfback might get tackled, after running just 5 yards. But now, because the guard has been blocking, so now he runs 15 yards before he gets tackled. Did I say no, not 60 years. Up till about the age of 15, 16? Okay, 53 years, something like that. Okay, obstructive karma is karma which it cannot produce its own result, or it doesn't produce its own result, but nevertheless it obstructs and frustrates some other karma countering its efficacy or shortening the duration of its pleasant or painful results. So if we go back to the football play, okay, the quarterback throws the ball, the halfback catches it maybe, 5 yards beyond the line, and if he were unobstructed, he would be able to run 10 further yards, but now some obstruction arises in the form of a tackle from the other team. So after the halfback runs 3 yards or 5 yards after catching the ball, then the tackle comes crashing down up on top of him, tackles him, and brings him to the ground, and the play is finished. So even though a productive karma may be strong at the time it is accumulated, an obstructive karma directly opposed to it may counteract it so that it is impaired when producing its results. Okay, then we have some examples. For example, a wholesome karma tends to produce rebirth in a superior plane of existence, but this may be impeded by an obstructive karma so that it generates rebirth in a lower plane. Now, if it's a wholesome karma, it has to produce its results in a fortunate plane of existence, not in the lower world. But when the karma is obstructed, it can change. If it's a wholesome karma, it can produce rebirth in the lower realm. But if it's due to produce a rebirth, say, in the Tusita Deva world, but some obstructive karma comes, it might produce a rebirth in the heaven of the 4 divine kings, or it might produce a human rebirth. The example given here is a karma tending to produce rebirth among high families, like high class, wealthy, powerful families, may produce rebirth among low families. Karma tending to bring a long lifespan, if it's obstructed, then the lifespan will be short. There might be a karma tending to produce a beautiful appearance, but if obstructive karma interferes, then it will produce a plain appearance. And then in this opposite way, in unwholesome karma that's tending to produce rebirth in the great hells, can be obstructed by a wholesome karma so that it will produce rebirth in one of the minor hells or among the pretas, or even a shorter rebirth in one of the great hells. Or, well, to give another example, okay, we have a being who's reborn in the animal realm. Now, the animal realm is considered an unfortunate destination, one of the realms of misery. But if the animal is reborn, the animal is reborn. The being is reborn as a puppy, and then the puppy is brought up or adopted by a loving family, and so the puppy, when it becomes a dog, it has a nice home with loving people, it gets sufficient food, the people give it exercise, they look after it. If the dog gets sick, they'll bring it to the vet to get medical treatment. So then we could say that this is a wholesome karma that's functioning in an obstructive way, obstructing the unwholesome karma that brought rebirth into the animal realm. Okay, then the fourth function of karma is called destructive karma. And this is wholesome or unwholesome karma, which supplants other weaker karma, prevents it from ripening, and instead produces its own result. And so the classic example of this is somebody who has been born as a human being through his or her productive karma, and they might have been originally destined by the power of the wholesome rebirth karma, rebirth producing karma, for a long lifespan, but that person has produced or created some other unwholesome karma in the distant past, which now gets the opportunity to ripen and shortens the lifespan so that the person dies prematurely. A classic example of this that's mentioned in the Buddha's texts is that of the Buddha's second chief disciple, Mahamoggallana. Okay, now as to become the Buddha's chief disciple, equipped with, he was the one who was the most powerful in psychic powers, the one who was most accomplished in psychic powers. And it must have been tremendous merit acquired through so many lives of cultivating the spiritual perfections, the paramitas, to become the second chief disciple of the Buddha, always accompanying the Buddha. Often the Buddha, when the Buddha is tired, he'll ask Moggallana to give a discourse. And yet, it's said that many aeons ago, far distant past, Moggallana had killed his own parents. And so as a result of that, he had been reborn in hell for a certain period. Of course, that's one of the really heavy karmas. Then, even after he came out from hell and was reborn back into the human realm, that karma was still not exhausted. And so it was sort of waiting there silently behind the scenes. And now in his last existence as the chief disciple of the Buddha, that karma caught up with him and gained its opportunity to become a destructive karma. And so what happened was that a number of gangsters, they say they were incited by some of the followers of some of the other spiritual sects, were envious of the Buddha, and so they got these gangsters and plotted with them to have Moggallana assassinated. So the gangsters came running after Moggallana, and Moggallana tried to use his psychic powers to escape from the gangsters. Not that he was afraid because he's an arhat, but he didn't want the gangsters to get the unwholesome karma of killing a noble disciple. But because of the unwholesome karma, Moggallana's psychic powers suddenly became useless. He couldn't activate them. He tried, but they just wouldn't work. And so then the gangsters caught him, and then they killed him. They beat him almost to the point of death, but then it's said that with the last bit of strength in his body, he came sort of crawling up to the presence of the Buddha, then did a final veneration of the Buddha, then he passed away. Okay, so continuing, it says, at the time of death, at first, this is interesting. At first, a sign of a bad destination may appear by the power of an evil karma. So this is the foresign of a bad rebirth. But then a good karma may emerge, expel the bad karma, and cause the sign of a good destination to appear. and produce rebirth in a heavenly world. So it seems here that the karma is actually exercising two functions. First, it's a destructive karma in that it's destroying the impending impact of the unwholesome karma, and then it's taking on the productive function of producing rebirth in a heavenly world. Then, in the opposite way, somebody might be heading for a good rebirth, and so maybe a sign of a good destination has appeared, but then suddenly a bad karma comes up from the deep background, and it cuts off or destroys the potential of the good karma, that's the destructive function, and generates rebirth in one of the bad destinations. And we could jump over to page 203. Lady Soyador, in his Abhidhamma commentary, he gives the example of intentional killing as illustrating how one karma may perform all four functions. Okay, so we have the case where one person takes the life of somebody else. Okay, now as long as the volition of killing does not get the opportunity to ripen, it can exercise any of the other three functions. So it might support the ripening of other unwholesome karma, because this is an unwholesome karma. So if some other unwholesome karma is ripening, producing its results, then that karma of killing can support it by strengthening that unwholesome karma so that it produces extended results or more intense results. On the other hand, it might obstruct the ripening of wholesome karma. So if wholesome karma is producing desirable results, pleasant, enjoyable results, then the unwholesome karma of killing can be obstructing that karma so that it produces those desirable results for a much shorter time than it would otherwise produce, or else the results are mixed. So along with the pleasure, there's some degree of dissatisfaction or the pleasant tone is much weaker than it would be otherwise. Or else that karma of killing can take on the role of destructive karma and entirely cut off the wholesome karma, so that the wholesome karma doesn't continue to produce its results, but it's replaced by the unwholesome karma of killing. Or I shouldn't say it's replaced by the unwholesome karma. It's just cut off so that the wholesome karma is not producing its results, but some other karma gets the opportunity. But now, when the act of killing, now it's going to take on the productive function. So when it gains the opportunity to ripen, then each volition involved in the act of killing now has the power to produce one rebirth in the lower planes of existence. And once that karma produces its result through rebirth linking, then its power is exhausted. It can't take on any further productive function, but it can continue to exercise the other three functions, as well as producing results in the course of existence, even for thousands of aeons. So they say, I'm not sure how much of this is Lady Soyador's own interpretation and how much of this comes from, other older commentaries and sub-commentaries. Sometimes one wonders, where do these commentators get their information from? But maybe it's based on older commentaries. Let me continue to go through, rather than ask for questions now. Okay, now comes a very important issue, very important question. That is, what is the order of ripening? How do we know which karmas are going to take on the role of producing rebirth? And so here the text distinguishes 4 types of karma according to, it says, with respect to the order in which the effect of karma takes place, there are 4 kinds of karma, namely weighty karma or heavy karma, death proximate karma, habitual karma, and reserve karma. And so the guide explains that this section concerns the order of precedence among the different karmas in taking on the role of generating rebirth linking in the next existence. And so the weighty karma, that is what we also call heavy karma, is karma which is so powerful, has such a heavy moral weight, that it takes on the role of generating the rebirth into the next existence. And it can't be replaced by any other karma in this role. And this weighty karma can pertain to either the wholesome side or the unwholesome side. On the wholesome side, the weighty karma will be the attainment of the jhanas. And I think this would apply only in the case where the person who attains the jhana is able to maintain the jhana through the course of their lifetime. If somebody, say, is a youth, and I've heard of cases of this happening, in their 20s, they're a very diligent meditator, they're able to achieve the jhanas, but then they become somewhat complacent about it. Then when they get into their 30s, they get somewhat negligent, they don't practice very diligently. In their 40s, they're going to discos and hanging out in bars, and by 50s, they're doing a lot of unwholesome activities. So now they're not really practicing meditation at all. I don't see how their previous attainment of jhana can take on the rebirth role. But if the person remains a diligent meditator and has a jhanic attainment up to the time of death, it doesn't, as I said before, doesn't mean that they have to be sitting in the jhana at the time of death, but that jhana will come up and govern the rebirth process so that they'll be reborn in one of the fine material realms or one of the immaterial realms corresponding to their jhana. Then on the unwholesome side, the heavy or weighty karmas are what are called the 5, how is it translated here? The 5 heinous crimes, or 5 heavy misdeeds. These are patricide, that's taking the life of one's father; matricide, taking the life of one's mother; the murder of an arahant, one who is perfectly fully liberated. Then the wounding of a Buddha with a malicious mind, because on one occasion it's said that the Buddha had some kind of illness, and so his doctor, named Jivaka, had to cut open something in the Buddha's flesh to let out some bad, like pus, but that wouldn't count as wounding the Buddha. And then maliciously creating a schism when there's a unified, harmonious Sangha, with a malicious mind fomenting division and creating a schism in the Sangha. And then it's said, I guess this is said in the commentaries, that if someone commits one of the heinous crimes, then that will prevent him from later reaching any of the sublime attainments, the jhanas or formless attainments, or any kind of supramundane realization, because that heavy, unwholesome karma will create an insurmountable obstacle. An example of this is mentioned in the text of King Ajatasattu, who became the king of the major Indian state of Magadha, which corresponds to present-day Bihar in India. So King Ajatasattu, he was very ambitious to become the king himself, and he became friendly with Devadatta, the Buddha's evil cousin, and Devadatta urged Ajatasattu, when he was a prince, to kill his own father in order to become the king. And so because Ajatasattu killed his own father, that created a heavy karma. Later, King Ajatasattu felt remorse for this deed, and one of his ministers persuaded him to go hear the Buddha preach and to question the Buddha. And then Ajatasattu questioned the Buddha. The Buddha gave him a very beautiful discourse, the second discourse in the Digha Nikaya, on the fruits of the renunciate life. And then at the end, when Ajatasattu had left, the Buddha said that if Ajatasattu had not taken the life of his father, who was a virtuous man, while sitting here, he would have reached the attainment of stream entry. But because he had killed his father, he couldn't attain that. That was an obstacle to him. Okay, now if there's no heavy karma, either wholesome or unwholesome, next in priority is what is called death proximate karma. And this one has to be careful in interpreting. This doesn't mean the karma in the immediately, in the last active thought process immediately preceding death, but this is some strong karma which is done shortly before death. And this kind of karma can transform a person's destiny, sort of swing a person from one direction to a different direction. For example, if we have a person who's done a lot of bad deeds in the course of his life, maybe the person has been even a robber or a murderer, but hasn't killed his own father or mother or an arahat, then as the person is getting fatally ill, he feels a lot of remorse and regret over these bad deeds. And then suddenly he thinks, if I could start all over, if I had a new life, I would just live it completely different, in a completely different way. And then he starts maybe trying to generate a lot of wholesome karma. If he's a Buddha, say, he might start meditating on loving kindness and compassion, or meditating on the figure of the Buddha, or reciting the name of the Buddha, or giving generous gifts to the poor and needy. And so now, close to the time of death, this person is generating strong, wholesome karma. And so this person, as a result of that karma, could be reborn under good conditions in the human realm or even in a heavenly realm. It doesn't mean that the person's going to escape the bad karma. That karma always has the potential to ripen. It can catch up with him and bring undesirable results. But because at the time of death they've generated strong, wholesome karma, that wholesome karma is sort of coming in and taking on the role of generating the rebirth. On the opposite side, we might have somebody who's done a fair amount of good karma in the course of their life, and now as death comes close, maybe they become very bitter, very angry at everybody. When relatives come to console them and to look after them, they become very dismissive. They start speaking in nasty ways and get very angry, even vicious temperament. That could cause a rebirth into the lower realms. It doesn't mean that they won't reap the results of their good karma, but because that bad karma, those bad thoughts, bad states of mind have arisen close to the time of death, that karma will take on the rebirth generating role, and the other good karma that they've created earlier in the life will have to get its opportunity to mature in other ways. Okay, now, if there's no particularly decisive good or bad karma close to the time of death, then what takes on the rebirth generating role is what is called habitual karma. That is the kind of actions, morally significant deeds that we are habituated to perform. So a person who is habitually generous and kind, for example, then one or another of his deeds of generosity or kindness will tend to come up at the time in the last active thought process and then generate the rebirth. Whereas if somebody is perpetually or constantly bitter, angry, miserly, aggressive, violent, greedy, competitive, then close to the time of death or in the last active thought process, one or another of those types of karmas will take on the role of generating the rebirth. And then the last one is quite interesting, and this is called reserve karma. That is, it just sometimes happens that some other deed that we might have done just once in the course of this life, or maybe even in a previous life, a life before this, suddenly just unexpectedly comes out of nowhere, out of the blue, so to speak, through some strange play of conditions, and takes on the role of generating the rebirth. Maybe this explains how beings in the animal realm can get out of the animal realm. Maybe if they had been a human being in some earlier life, and then they had done some good deeds as a human being, and then as a result of some unwholesome actions, they were reborn as an animal. But then just at the time of death, or very close to just as coming into the death process, some karma that they had done in the earlier life, good karma as a human being, gets activated through some play of conditions, and that karma then takes on the role of generating rebirth, so they come back into the human realm. So all of this shows the importance, I would say, of being mindful, heedful, and diligent, so that we have some degree of mastery over our mind at the time that death approaches. So even if we don't have a weighty, wholesome karma to generate a rebirth in one of the higher realms, but if we're persistently diligent in cultivating wholesome states of consciousness, then we don't have to rely on turning to the good at the last minute, because we'll have a store of wholesome chittas which are likely to come into the role of habitual karma and then generate a good rebirth in the future. Since we have 5 minutes, I won't start the next section, so if there's any questions about this, what we've covered here. But more complex questions about karma hold till later. But if you think you have just something that needs to be cleared up. Okay, Stephen?
I hope this is appropriate. Just back to the Bhavanga for a moment.
Yeah.
So I wanted to check that I am understanding correctly that this more, say, three-dimensional view of karma as opposed to just a linear progression sort of explains how, although we are born with a certain kind of karma, we can avoid some ill effects by these other facets of karma that we can activate through our deeds.
Yeah, definitely.
And then conversely, though, no matter what we do, the Bhavanga itself is sort of immutable in our lifetime.
Yeah, the Bhavanga is immutable. The Bhavanga doesn't change. Though because we're human beings, and human beings are always born as a result of wholesome karma, so our Bhavanga will be at least the result of a wholesome karma. So it has already the disposition towards the wholesome in it. But if we do like wholesome good deeds, even in this life itself, those wholesome good deeds could function as supportive karma in relation to the productive wholesome karma that we do in this life and then from earlier lives. And again, the wholesome deeds that we do in this life can function as obstructive karma to prevent the maturing of unwholesome karma, either from earlier in this life or from previous lives.
Thank you.
Okay, Ravi, please take the microphone.
Regarding Moggallana's death, from one person's actions, subsequently it ended up with 3 people having the same type of reaction in, one of the killing Arahant is also a very major thing, like killing the
Oh, you mean
so it was one person.
The gangsters who killed...
Yeah, Moggallana was just one person.
Yeah.
Now here it ended up with 3 people.
3 people?
But the three gangsters.
Well, there are 3 gangsters, that I don't remember a number.
3 gangsters. So it was one person did a very bad crime.
Yeah.
Finally, to repay that, there were 3.
Yeah. Yeah, one question, I think it was Ying had asked me earlier this morning. She asked, how is it possible for an animal to get out of the animal realm? Or she asked actually, is it possible for an animal to create good karma? And now generally, animals have a hard time creating good karma, because in the animal realm, the beings in the animal realm, they're driven purely by instinct. So by a lot of selfishness and competitiveness and anger against hostility towards other animals. But occasionally one sees quite remarkable behavior on the part of animals. So we read sometimes about like a dog, a big family dog. If there's a house is on fire, the dog will even risk its own life to save, say, the baby sleeping in the crib. And if you go to YouTube and you put into the search box, I think it's strange animal friends, you'll get a number of videos which will show you how animals that are usually enemies, antagonistic to each other, are living together peacefully, harmoniously. Like you see a cat and a mouse that live together as friends. They sort of lie in the same bed and they drink together from the same bowl of milk. And the tiger and a pig living together harmoniously. And a dog and an elephant. Yeah, so you'll see that animals also have very good feelings sometimes.
If I remember correctly, the Jataka tales are full of anecdotes describing how. My favorite is how the rabbit got on the moon.
The
Jataka tales.
Yeah, which one?
If you look up at the moon in the night, you'll see an inverted rabbit.
Oh yeah. The story about the rabbit that jumped into the fire to feed.
Yeah, right, that one.
Okay, let us take a 15-minute break now. So it's 3:15.